Welcome to the Wife Stories YouTube channel. New video every day, and don't forget to subscribe. Here we go. I was returning home to my beloved wife as usual, and guess what? I found my wife in bed with her lover, who was also her boss. Reaction? Of course, I wanted to kick them out. But when her lover started humiliating and provoking me, I couldn't take it anymore. I was overcome with anger. I wanted revenge. I'm currently confined to my prison cell, having conveyed my story to my parents in an attempt to elucidate how I arrived here and why I rejected all the plea deals extended to me in order to reduce my charges from assault and battery. These deals would have spared me imprisonment, mandated community service, and possibly salvaged my marriage, although the latter ceased to be a concern following the incident, while preserving my liberty. I'm Ron Jacobs, age 29, formerly employed in construction before my incarceration. I was married to Carly, also 29, whom I envisioned as my lifelong partner. However, by saying was married, I mean precisely that. She will soon be my ex-wife, as I am in the process of divorcing her. Carly, formerly employed as a secretary to one of the partners at a law firm, may still hold that position for all I know or care. You can see where this is headed. Those individuals often keep a mistress at home to enhance their family reputation, but any woman under 50 is considered fair game, and if they need to leverage their power, they don't hesitate. They can manipulate the legal system to suit their desires and often have the financial means to ensure things go their way. One such individual was Randolph Wiseman. His father founded the company, and Randy had been riding the gravy train as long as he didn't mess up too badly. To give him credit, I could understand why women were drawn to him. He was about 6 feet tall, around 200 pounds, in great shape, sporting a perpetual tan, and just shy of 40. A desirable package, as my wife had mentioned a few times. It never bothered me. After all, I had also complimented some of our friends or even random women we encountered. We were honest with each other, acknowledging that in a world of around 8 billion people, finding others attractive was natural. Carly never gave me reason to doubt her loyalty. I believe we were inseparable, devoted to each other. Despite her insistence that nothing has changed, I struggle to comprehend her stance after recent events. Being in prison has granted me the power to choose whom I interact with, and I haven't communicated with Carly since my arrival, despite efforts from her, our lawyers, families, and well-meaning friends. I've made it clear to all of them. Bring up Carly again and our ties are severed, whether familial, friendly, or legal. A few friends and Carly's sister pushed me on this issue, landing themselves on my blacklist of individuals I refused to engage with. My lawyer realized how close he was to being dismissed and didn't want to lose out on potential earnings from the impending divorce settlement. As an opportunistic attorney, he's eyeing the unlikely but lucrative payday. I received a 2-year sentence for aggravated assault resulting in serious injuries, though I could have faced 10 years. I believe I got lucky with the judge assigned to my case, suspecting that his personal issues influenced his decision. I suspect his wife may have cheated on him. During the trial and sentencing, he acknowledged the intense provocation I faced, both from my wife and her lover's actions in our home, and from the disrespectful words of her lover. However, he also noted that some injuries were not inflicted in self-defense, including broken bones that were maliciously caused, indicating a need for a substantial jail term. He mentioned that I could have spared the state the expense of a trial if I had accepted the plea deal offered by the district attorney. Now, 8 months into my sentence, I anticipate being released after 12 months with good behavior. Considering my clean record prior to this incident. Once I'm out, I plan to seek vengeance and wreak havoc on those who wronged me. Even if it leads me back to prison, I don't care. People will receive their just desserts, especially that lowlife Wiseman. I guess the simplest way to convey this is to share what I wrote to my parents. Dear Mom and Dad, I apologize if my actions have brought shame upon you by landing me in prison. Shaming you is the last thing I wanted or ever anticipated. My dilemma was either facing this consequence or living with the unbearable shame of either tolerating what occurred or accepting the plea deals offered to avoid imprisonment. I trust you understand why I couldn't live with that regret. I loved Carly wholeheartedly, believing our relationship was enduring, but it turns out I misjudged her character. I had no inkling of her involvement with Wiseman, despite her casual mention of his attractiveness. But what does that matter? Many people are attractive. It's a common observation. The trajectory of my life altered irreversibly when, one day, we finished a major home extension in the morning, had a few beers at lunch with the crew, and dispersed around 1:30. Upon returning home, I encountered the cliched scene of a fancy BMW in the driveway and no sign of Carly's car. This raised suspicions, even though I never doubted her before. Clearly, someone with such a car had transported her home. When I entered our serene house, the sounds coming from above immediately attracted my attention, prompting me to go up to our bedroom. I found her there with her boss, and it was terrible to see your wife cheating on you. He, her boss, while they haven't seen me yet, brazenly remarked that she was happy to be with a real man and not with a cuckold spouse. For a moment I was paralyzed, overcome by the outburst of anger that had engulfed me in those fleeting seconds. He might have boasted of physical stature, but I confronted him with strength forged by honest work, unlike his gim-honed physique. Without hesitation, I grabbed him by the hair, forcibly tore him away from her, and pinned him against the wall. Glancing at Carly, whose pallor betrayed her shock, I gave a decisive order. "Pack your things and leave my house." "You no longer live here," I said firmly. Wiseman dusted himself off, putting on a stern look. "So the cuckold wants to act tough," he quipped. Before he could finish, I hit him hard, which made him stagger. "Try your luck, Sage, but heed this warning. You're not welcome here. If you don't leave, you'll regret it, I'm warned." Ignoring the warning, Wiseman foolishly swung at me. I quickly grabbed his wrist and twisted it behind his back. "Don't make me hurt you, Wiseman. If you harm me, I will make sure that you spend a long time behind bars, and I will maintain a relationship with your wife throughout your imprisonment, you pathetic cuckold," I warned him sternly. He grinned until I forcefully lifted his arm higher and higher until I heard the corresponding crunch. Then I just knocked him to the floor and already worked with my work boots. Amid his screams, Carly rushed to me, begging, "Stop, Ron. He can really put you in jail if you keep doing this. Please stop." "Worried about your boyfriend, Carly," I retorted. "No, Ron, I'm worried about you. I don't want you to ruin your life because of him and me. I was so stupid," she admitted. I looked at her with disdain and replied, "It's not your concern anymore. I told you to pack up and leave." "But Ron," she tried to come up to me. I completely lost control of myself and ended up spitting in her face, which I deeply regret. But that stopped her in her tracks. I screamed, "Pack your things and leave. You're a disgraceful person. I never want to see you again." Surprisingly, it seemed to work, and she began to pack her things, crying loudly. Turning to Wiseman, I said, "Your behavior is not at all like what your name says, jerk. A truly wise person wouldn't provoke someone like me, especially using derogatory expressions like cuckold, unless of course he's asking for trouble like you are now. Listen carefully. As soon as this woman packs up, you two will leave in that fancy car that's parked in my driveway. I suggest she take you to the emergency room so she can take care of your injuries and relieve you of the pain. Don't ever come back here. This house belonged to my grandfather and was given to me before we got married. She doesn't have any legal rights to him, so don't even try. If you do, I won't hesitate to take more drastic measures next time. So if you don't like hospital beds and wheelchairs, stay away from me. That's your problem now. Take her home to meet your wife and kids or get rid of her. I don't care." Carly moaned in despair behind me, but I remained firm. "It's up to you, Carly. I'm not a saint, and I'll never forgive you for that. You're just a worthless, dirty liar. Maybe your lover should have booked a hotel room, then I probably wouldn't have found out anything. I hit him hard between the legs. It was your brilliant idea, wasn't it? Do it in my bed." Followed by a second blow. He screamed in pain again. "Give me the slightest reason in the future, and I will completely ruin your life. Mom and Dad, I apologize for being harsh, but I want you to understand exactly how things went wrong between Carly and me. As you know, I'm divorcing her, so by the time I get out of here, I'll be a free man. I will never even look in her direction again. My last memory of her will be my spitting in her face, which she deserved. I know you've been supportive, but I'm never getting married again. I could never trust another woman. I'm sorry, Mom, but I trusted Carly completely. And look where that got me. As you know, I was arrested that night, and that's when all this drama started. Wiseman was determined to fulfill his promise of having me arrested. He gathered detailed reports of his injuries for the sheriff's office and arranged for charges to be brought against me with the help of his friend in the DA's office. These charges included aggravated assault, which could result in a maximum of 10 years in jail. He also persuaded Carly to press charges for spitting in her face. As you're aware, I was arrested, and then the legal proceedings began. I was informed that Carly had withdrawn her assault charge herself, as it was considered a minor issue. I had hired a lawyer who presented me with an offer from the DA. The offer was for me to plead guilty to a misdemeanor assault charge and accept a 6-month suspended sentence, with the condition of paying Wiseman's medical expenses. There were 2 conditions attached to this proposition. First, Wiseman insisted that I sign an agreement to keep confidential what had transpired between us, as he had just disclosed to his wife that he had been assaulted. Second, I was required to refrain from divorcing Carly until we had attended 10 sessions of marriage counseling. These stipulations seemed like attempts to give them an escape route, but I wasn't willing to comply. I declined the offer and opted to face trial instead. Although my lawyer considered it a favorable offer, pointing out that avoiding jail entirely given the injuries I had inflicted on Wiseman was a significant outcome, he also cautioned that if the trial did not go well, I could face up to 10 years behind bars. I questioned whether he grasped the principles at stake, the events that unfolded in my own home, how Wiseman had attempted to demean me in my own bed with my wife. I was resolute that I would exact my revenge regardless of my personal circumstances. The prospect of jail didn't intimidate me. I was physically capable and confident in my ability to navigate prison life, and upon release, I knew I could secure employment in construction despite my status as an ex-convict. Under no circumstances was I going to relinquish my right to seek justice or to disrupt their lives, and I absolutely refused to participate in any reconciliation sessions with Carly. She's dead to me. Days passed, and I was informed I had a visitor. Given that you had been a few days prior, I assumed it might be you again. However, when I was escorted into the room, Carly was brought in instead, and I immediately called for the guard. They entered to see what the commotion was about, and I adamantly insisted that they not allow that woman to see me again. She tried to claim she was my wife, but they escorted her out, informing her that I had the right to refuse visitors. I consulted my lawyer and initiated divorce proceedings. Additionally, I inquired about the possibility of suing Carly's employer and her direct supervisor, Wiseman. My lawyer explained that while our state permits alienation of affection lawsuits, none had been successfully awarded in 20 years. However, he suggested that the company might opt for an out-of-court settlement to avoid negative publicity, and we could certainly raise a stir about the company's lack of moral integrity. I inquired about the implications if they offered to settle a legal matter, either before or after our divorce. Its response was straightforward. Wait until after the divorce to minimize assets at the time of agreement. Our home is secure, but she will be entitled to 50% of any other assets. So I'll address this issue with them post-divorce. If you happen to speak with her, please refrain from mentioning any of this to her. I know you both cared for her deeply, but I'm counting on you not to let me down. Mom and Dad, I cherish you both, and this situation is only temporary. With that, I hope they now comprehended the full narrative, not just the version relayed by Carly and certain acquaintances who believed I should forgive her. Before my release, there was a complication in the divorce proceedings. Carly insisted on certain conditions. Either I agree to counseling as previously suggested, or allow her up to 3 one-hour visits where we had to engage in discussion. She knew well enough that I could simply ignore her during these visits. Though I desperately wanted to finalize the divorce, I resumed that 3 one-hour sessions were preferable to the court's original mandate. I briefly entertained the idea of rejecting both options, serving my time and disappearing afterward. However, I refused to let her drive me out of my home, especially considering my parents nearing retirement and their desire to have their only son in their lives as they age. The idea of being in the same room as her was repulsive, but reluctantly, I agreed to her offer of 3 visits. I decided that if it became unbearable, I could call for assistance and have her removed. Carly's first visit. Tag Ron, you seem well despite the circumstances. Screw you, Carly. These circumstances are entirely because you couldn't keep yourself together and slept with your boss. Spit it out and leave. You sicken me. Carly attempted to invoke tears, but I was beyond caring about her emotions. I simply harbored contempt for her, understanding that hate isn't the antithesis of love. It's perhaps love badly shattered. I hadn't reached the stage of mature indifference yet, where your ex-spouse or soon-to-be ex means nothing to you. Mature indifference, complete apathy, is what I aspire to achieve soon. Ron, I can't believe what I've done to us. You're not alone in that realization, Carly. Please, Ron, just listen and refrain from insults. I'm listening, Carly, but I'm not interested in what you have to say. You betrayed me in my own house, in our bed, with a man who insulted and humiliated me when he slept with you. How could you expect me to forgive, forget, or at least tolerate your presence in my life? Carly's expression paled and tears streamed down her cheeks. Ron, I saw this coming. That's why I asked for 3 meetings. I can't do it today. Well, I'll be back. I love you no matter what you think. I made a mistake, but my love for you remains. Carly, I agreed to these 3 meetings, but understand I sincerely despise you for what you did to us. I hate not only your actions, I hate you. I will never reconcile with you. And once these 3 meetings are over, I don't want to have anything to do with you anymore. She was speechless and knocked on the door, asking for permission to leave. Another visitor. A week later, yet another visitor arrived, my mother. Despite my warnings to everyone, I knew she had come to discuss Carly with me. Ron, I understand your reluctance to talk about her. I realize I'm risking our relationship by bringing this up. But please hear me out. Go ahead, Mom. You have a special place, but just this once, okay? I want her out of my life. Nothing you say will change that. So go ahead, Mom, and I'll still love you. Thank you, son. I love you more than anyone except your dad. I know what she did to you was unforgivable, but I want to talk about her for your own well-being. You may think you hate her now, and perhaps you truly do, but until you let go of all that hatred, you won't find any peace in your life. All I ask is that you talk to her without harshness, without verbally attacking her. Last week, she came to me for a conversation, Ron. She's deeply hurt, completely shattered. She's grappling with how she allowed herself to be manipulated by that deceitful person, leading to her betrayal of you. She's aware that she's lost you, and she understands the gravity of your words during her last visit. It was as painful for her as you intended it to be. If your aim is to crush her, you're succeeding. All I'm urging you to do is to hear her out, not to change your decision. I know you won't, and she knows it too. Despite the absence of hope for reconciliation, out of respect for the good times you've shared, let her retain some dignity as she walks away. She's teetering on the edge. Imagine how you'd feel a decade from now if you knew your words had driven her to suicide. Mom, I could be callous and say I don't care about her fate right now, but you're right. Eventually, the hatred will fade, replaced by regret for what transpired. I wouldn't want to bear the weight of her death on my conscience. Thank you, Mom, for your wisdom. I'll cease my efforts to make her feel miserable. I did love her wholeheartedly, but the divorce remains inevitable. I'll be out of prison in a couple of months, and I'm determined not to return. I want to repay you and Dad for your unwavering love and support. I couldn't have asked for better parents. Thank you for helping me see reason, Mom. Carly Zakin visit. Hi, Carly. I want to begin by apologizing for the way I spoke to you last time. It reflected my feelings, but it was impolite. Thank you, Ron. Your mother is truly amazing. I didn't ask her to defend me. I already understand deep down that you won't give me another chance. I just want to express what's in my heart and how remorseful I am for what I did to the best man I've ever known or will ever know. If I can be completely honest with you, maybe we won't need a 3rd meeting. I don't want to cause you more discomfort, but I want to seize this opportunity to clear the air. I behaved like an immature girl, a foolish teenager who didn't know any better. I'm almost 30, a woman who allowed herself to be charmed by an attractive older man who seemed so worldly, who showered attention on an ordinary girl, making her feel special and leading her to betray the love of her life. I was incredibly foolish, Ron. I acknowledge that. He spent a little money. That's all it took, along with some compliments on my appearance, how attractive I am, and like a fool, I fell for it completely. I was incredibly naive. All it took was a bit of flattery, and I compromised myself far too easily for some superficial charm. I need you to understand that my greatest regret is bringing him into our bed more than any other aspect of my betrayal. It's unforgivable. I have no excuses. It was his desire to engage in such a taboo act, to be with a married woman in her husband's bed, and unfortunately, I succumbed to it, disrespecting you deeply. I am profoundly sorry. Ron, it pains me to admit, but you are justified in seeking a divorce. It took very little to break me. If I hold myself in such low regard, how can I expect you to continue loving me as you always have? I wanted to salvage our marriage, and I still do. But I understand that it's beyond repair. My heart is shattered. I have only ever loved you. I will sign whatever documents are necessary for the divorce without delay. You deserve better than me. Ron, you are an exceptional man, and you will be an exceptional father. I dreamed of nothing more than having your children and growing old together as a family. If I may ask one thing of you, it's this. Don't let my foolishness ruin your life. Find the woman you deserve, build a family, and make each other happy. Make your parents proud and live a beautiful life. I wish it could have been me, but I lack the courage to do what needs to be done. Perhaps one day you can remember me with fondness for what we once shared, not for how I destroyed it. I've said what needed to be said. Now I will leave. Please understand that I have ruined my own life, but I beg you not to let me ruin yours. My love for you will always remain. Goodbye, Ron. After everything that happened, I was quite moved. I told her, my Carly, you're right. We can't reconcile. It's as simple as that. I could never trust you again. But today, you've reminded me of the woman I once loved. Carly, I want you to understand that even though I can't return to loving you without trust, I no longer harbor hatred. I wish you a good life, Carly. One mistake doesn't define you as a bad person, just not the right one for me. Goodbye, Carly. We shared a brief hug. Goodbye, and she left. I could tell it wasn't easy for her to say those things. She owned up to her mistakes, acknowledged her foolishness, but nothing she said would change my decision to divorce her. She agreed to sign the papers without needing another meeting. After honoring her promise, Carly signed the divorce papers, leading to the granting of our divorce, which now awaits the final decree. Shortly after my final encounter with Carly, my release date from prison was confirmed. After my release, my parents picked me up from prison. I had served my time without compromising my commitment to pursuing things legally, and I was determined to make Randolph Wiseman's life very difficult. The morning after my release, I met with my lawyer. It was time to take action against Wiseman. I had spent a year in prison for what I did to him. He had threatened me with prison time when I caught him with Carly in my bed, and in response, I had injured his shoulder and broken several bones in his hand. Did that warrant a year in prison out of a 2-year sentence? Not in my opinion. He only received part of what he deserved. Now, I was going to ensure that his life took a nosedive. My lawyer and I have developed a plan to make Wiseman suffer. Initially, we planned to contact his firm and notify them of our intention to sue for failing, to prevent a relationship between employees of their firm. We expected that they would most likely reject this application and say that such cases had not been investigated in the state for 20 years. Following this, our strategy involved launching a media campaign. The aggrieved husband would publicly recount discovering the senior partner in bed with his wife in their own home and describe how he had been demeaned by Wiseman before resorting to physical confrontation to eject the lawyer from his property. Additionally, we would highlight that the husband had been imprisoned after charges were filed by Wiseman's associate, the district attorney, and had served a year for assault. Furthermore, we would emphasize that his divorce was nearing completion due to Wiseman's role in destroying the marriage. My attorney's connection with a journalist who harbored animosity toward Wiseman proved advantageous, ensuring the story's circulation in newspapers and piquing the interest of the national press. We counted on Wiseman's associates being averse to the potential scandal and opting for an out-of-court settlement. My subsequent aim was to disrupt Wiseman's marriage as he had ruined mine. However, I decided to delay this vendetta until after resolving matters with the law firm. Our predictions about the outcome were spot on. Despite their company's dismissive response, they insinuated that we must possess substantial wealth to pursue legal action and asserted we wouldn't receive a dime in court. My attorney's subsequent letter caused a significant stir within the firm, abruptly wiping away any humor previously present. They became visibly tense, even resorting to threats of bankruptcy should I disclose anything to the media. In reality, I was already on the brink of bankruptcy, facing potential imprisonment for 12 months, possessing scant savings, and bleak prospects. Ironically, this dire situation rendered me immune to the fear of bankruptcy. In his follow-up correspondence, my attorney reiterated this reality to them, further embellishing by offering to handle the case pro bono due to the egregious miscarriage of justice suffered by the unfortunate husband. They requested a face-to-face meeting at their office where, upon entering their conference room, we encountered the individual in question, the very one causing all the trouble. As I sat down, he couldn't resist saying, "Well, look who's here, the little cuckold himself. I've heard you've come to us with your handout, begging for a handout. Did you enjoy your time in prison, courtesy of me and the DA? I knew you were too damn dumb to take the deal he offered." He chuckled. "Weissman, I warned you about talking to me like that. You just earned yourself another visit to the pain doctor." Suddenly, William Wonstein, another descendant of the original founder, intervened, saying, "Oh, for God's sake, Randolph, cut the tough guy act. We're trying to resolve this, not escalate it. Randolph, if you can't keep quiet, it's best if you let the rest of us handle this." Slightly humbled by his partner's rebuke, Randolph responded, "All right, William, I get it. The cuckold and I have history, which is why we're all here today. Let's hear what they have to say." My attorney, Giles, explained, "Gentlemen, our intention, as stated in our letter, is straightforward. We plan to pursue a claim for alienation of affection. While some may view it as a trivial matter unlikely to yield significant results, it presents a unique opportunity for us, with the assistance of a proactive journalist, to garner extensive publicity for your law firm. However, recounting Mr. Jacobs' unfortunate tale of betrayal and imprisonment, facilitated by a close association between a partner of this firm and the DA, may not be the kind of attention you desire." "So, essentially, this is an attempt to pressure our firm," exclaimed Green, or Howard Green, another senior partner, and the eldest son of Arnold Green, a founding partner. "Mr. Green, my client has suffered the loss of his wife and endured a full year of imprisonment. Were it not for the entirely inappropriate actions of your partner, Randolph Wiseman, he would still be married, employed, and free. This firm has inflicted serious harm upon my client, and if the courts cannot rectify it, we will pursue alternative means. Let me inform you that the ex-wife of my cooperative journalist used to be employed by this firm. Can you guess which partner she worked under? He has every motivation to tarnish your reputation in the court of public opinion. He will do so eagerly. As for the rest of you gentlemen, assuming you all are gentlemen, excluding Wiseman and disapproving of his conduct, I suggest you contemplate whether your association with him serves your best interests." From out of the blue, Peter Cooper, who had been silent until then, emitted a sudden grunt. "Indeed," he uttered, casting a disdainful glance at Wiseman, as if he were something unpleasant stuck to the bottom of his shoe. Giles resumed speaking. "We find 1 million to be somewhat lacking, but given the circumstances, a reasonable sum to, let's say, resolve this unpleasant matter for the firm." Once again, Peter Cooper interjected, "We'll inform you of our decision by the end of today. Good day, gentleman Jacobs. I apologize for the trouble this fool has caused you." With another grunt, he exited the room, visibly agitated. It didn't take long for us to learn that not only had the partners agreed to pay the compensation, but they also wanted Giles to inform me that the other partners had bought out Wiseman at a very low price, effectively removing him from the partnership. They needed my signature to confirm the full and final settlement with their firm and to ensure that they wouldn't face any further claims. Yet another aspect of my ordeal was resolved. Time had come to attend to other matters. My primary desire, revenge on Wiseman, required no legal assistance, only my own vindictiveness and a touch of native cunning. I began acquainting myself with Wiseman's wife. She frequented the gym 4 mornings a week, maintaining a slender physique despite the toll of 3 children. Though slightly fuller in the hips than before, she remained strikingly beautiful, raising the question, why wasn't she sufficient for Wiseman? Observing her routines for 2 weeks revealed an intriguing pattern. On the 5th morning, she visited the home of a man roughly a decade her junior. I seized the opportunity to confront her one Wednesday as she left his residence, catching her off guard. "Mrs. Wiseman, may we speak?" I approached as she strode toward her car. "I'm sorry, I'm in a hurry," she replied. "Does your husband know about your Wednesday visits, Mrs. Wiseman?" My query snagged her attention, exposing their mutual infidelity. Yet I pondered perhaps there was more to uncover. "All right, what do you want?" She relented. "Just a brief conversation, Mrs. Wiseman. Allow me to treat you to coffee across the street. It's a public place, and I assure you I pose no threat." We crossed to the other side and found empty seats. I started with a question. "Do you remember how your husband returned home with an injury a little over a year ago? Dislocated shoulder and several fractures." She confirmed that she did. "I'm not sure how he explained it, but I caused these injuries myself. You see, I caught him in bed with my wife, and when I intervened, he tried to discredit me, so I took action." "Did he mention that he is no longer a partner in his company?" She shook her head. "I set that up too, indirectly. Now I'm looking for ways to ruin his life even more. Mrs. Wiseman, I assume you're aware that your husband has behaved in this way before." "Yes, it's been a habit throughout our marriage. Lately, as you've noticed, I've been having some affairs too. My last friend is Ryan, who I visited this morning." She smiled at me tenderly before continuing. "I don't want to belittle you, Mr. Jacobs, but what the hell was your wife thinking when she said Randy was good in bed? Why did she do it? Maybe she went crazy, or maybe he was courting her. He's good at it." My ex-wife, Mrs. Wiseman, was unable to provide a satisfactory explanation. She blames herself for cheating on me so easily. She is very sorry. "So I suppose you live in prosperity, and that's why you tolerate his infidelities and seek solace elsewhere?" I asked, feeling a little disappointed. "Ah, I see what you're getting at, Mr. Jacobs. Were you hoping to find a faithful wife who would be upset about her husband's infidelity? Maybe you were hoping for a divorce," she nodded, understanding my intentions. "I'm sorry to let you down, Mr. Jacobs. I've settled into my life too well, and besides, I have 3 small children to raise. Besides, for the last 8 years, I've enjoyed the best intimacy of my life. Not with my husband, of course. It's amazing, really. I wish it was more than 1 morning a week. But I have to be careful not to get caught. I'm trying to be restrained, but obviously not restrained enough since you found out so easily. You should know that I am tolerant of Randy. I used to love him very much, but his betrayal extinguished this love. I think having children complicates the situation, Mr. Jacobs. I assume you and your ex-wife didn't have any. In any case, in our relationship, only I have the financial resources. I have a substantial trust fund left by my grandfather. If we had broken up, I might have had to pay him alimony, although I'm not sure. Maybe they are protected. I have never seriously considered the possibility of divorce because of my children. For their sake, I keep Randy with me. Despite his flaws, he is a good father. By the way, Mr. Jacobs, I'm trying to be discreet, but I'm sure Randy knows about my affairs with other men. Sometimes on Wednesday nights, I don't have time to clean up properly after being with Ryan. I suspect he knows about it, and despite his bravado about cuckolding men like you, I think he just thinks he is." Smiling across the table, she continued, "As I mentioned, I would prefer to have my needs met more often than once a week. Would you be interested in reciprocating intimacy? I wouldn't mind helping you get revenge. Are you free on Friday mornings? The morning is best for me because I pick up my kids from school in the afternoon." I've already come to terms with the disappointment that apparently Wisman won't have a divorce in the future. But will I sleep with his wife? As they say, an eye for an eye. I'm Esther, Mr. Jacobs. If we're going to have a secret relationship, I should at least know your name. My name is Ron Esther, and I'm looking forward to Friday. I know your address. Should I come by at 10? She nodded in agreement. It wasn't what I expected, but she was a beautiful woman. What's not to like? I haven't been close since I discovered him with my unfaithful wife Carly. It seemed appropriate to me. We broke up promising to get together again on Friday. Although it was not at all what I expected, I was looking forward to the end of the lull period. The idea of sleeping with Wisman's wife might have seemed attractive as revenge, even if she wasn't particularly attractive. But she was amazing. Getting to know her better promised to be a pleasure. What I could never have foreseen was how much pleasure it would give me. For some reason that Friday morning, she and I had a lot of fun spending time together. After that, we lay together, not separating, but hugging each other, as if to make sure that what we had experienced was real. I immediately realized that there was something between us, beyond a simple physical attraction. At first, we didn't talk about anything, but then she started talking about how my wife could trade me for her husband. She said that I was beautiful. I reciprocated and said that I did not understand why her husband was looking at other girls when such a beautiful woman was waiting for him at home. We continued to meet like this every Friday for 4 weeks until one day it has happened. She kissed me gently on the cheek before saying those famous words, "Ron, we need to talk." As she kissed him passionately, she hoped to convey that this conversation wasn't going to be unpleasant. However, Ron couldn't shake off the fear that she was going to end their relationship. "Ron, I've mentioned before that I come from money. I'm a trust fund kid, and I suspect that's why Randy married me. I represented both a visually appealing partner and, more significantly, financial security. What I haven't disclosed yet is the extent of that wealth. My grandfather was quite the rogue. He amassed a fortune beyond imagination, far more than anyone could ever spend. However, if anyone could come close to exhausting that wealth, it would be his only son, my father. Gramps didn't trust him to handle the money wisely, so he provided my father with a monthly allowance that ensured comfort, but not opulence. The rest he stashed away in a trust fund, slated to be fully accessible to me when I turned 38. I'm not entirely sure why 38 was significant to him, but that milestone is only 8 months away. After our first Friday together, I felt compelled to review the terms of my trust fund, particularly concerning divorce. It's ironclad. Randy has no claim to it whatsoever. I brought it into the marriage, and neither of us has contributed to it. It remains virtually untouched, though I have the option to withdraw a modest annual sum. My financial advisor insists on staying within certain limits to maintain its untouched status, which he suggests may be crucial, although he's confident it's untouchable overall. It's got me thinking, do I really need Randy around? Can I just grant him unrestricted visitation with the kids to be agreed upon between us? Lately, I've come to realize I tolerate Randy, but I don't have an ounce of love for him. Why should I stick with someone who has repeatedly betrayed me? I know that might sound hypocritical, but he had affairs before I did. Ron, I'm not saying I want you to replace Randy. I'm saying I've developed feelings for you. I'd like to see you on my terms as often as we both desire, and I think we could be more than just casual partners. I'm willing to let go of Ryan if you're on board with this. Esther, that might be the best we need to talk in history. I thought you were going to thank me and say goodbye. I'm fully on board with what you're suggesting. Like you, I think we started as a form of revenge, but I believe we're quickly becoming something more. We adhered to the Friday schedule until we could properly discuss it. She informed me she had encountered Ryan on Wednesday, but it was merely to express gratitude and bid farewell. Ron, I've concocted a rather wicked yet fascinating scheme. Allow me to unveil my cunning plan that I intend to spring on Randy next Friday morning. Upon hearing her proposal, I couldn't contain my grin. The woman was a mastermind. I adored it. And thus the subsequent Friday, Esther and I were engrossed in our customary Friday morning escapade, our passion for each other seemingly insatiable at this point. Unbeknownst to us, a man named William Fox, attired in a business suit, sat quietly in the downstairs lounge, attending to his own affairs when we heard, "Who the hell are you and why are you in my house? Where's Esther?" It was Randy. Esther had summoned him, claiming there was something of utmost importance necessitating his presence at noon. Despite his attempts to ascertain further details, she insisted it was crucial and insisted he come. "Are you Mr. Randolph Wiseman, sir? Your wife informed me of your arrival. She's upstairs with her chaperone if you want to join them." "What's going on?" Randy's voice coming up the stairs echoed in the hall, interrupting us in mid-sentence. Esther was looking forward to his appearance while I turned away from him, absorbed in the moment. Esther took the initiative. "Oh yeah, Ron, do it. You are superior to my husband in all the parameters," she exaggerated, trying to convince the panting sage. "Randy, darling, you look upset. Relax, I'm just doing extramarital affairs just like you." With that, I turned around, letting Randy see who was with his wife. "The cuckold himself? You've got to be kidding," he exclaimed. "Why did you bring this weakling into our bedroom?" "Put it away before I lose my temper." I got out of bed and went over to him. "Well, cuckold, how do you like my retaliatory strike? And speaking of threats, aren't you overestimating your capabilities? Remember, I promised you a visit to Dr. Payne." He paled with fear, I reassured him. "Relax, we have a different kind of suffering in store for you. There's a gift waiting for you under your pillow. Why don't you grab it?" I nudged him towards the bed. As he reached under his pillow, he extracted a manila envelope. Esther and I simultaneously declared, "You've been served." William Fox, who had followed him upstairs, snapped a photograph and remarked, "It's official." We had executed it perfectly. The target stood frozen in disbelief. I hadn't seen anyone so shocked since I dislocated his shoulder once. Esther gently slapped Randy to snap him out of his shock. She proceeded to explain to him that what he was experiencing was fair retribution for his actions against me. She confessed that she no longer harbored any love for him due to his infidelity throughout their marriage, which had transformed her love into genuine disdain. She assured him that she wouldn't interfere with his relationship with their children and promised him unrestricted access to them. Finally, she advised him to hire a lawyer if he desired, but suggested they could use the same one, as she believed they could handle the divorce amicably and avoid turning it into a contentious battle for the sake of their children. Randy, to his credit, continued to nod in acceptance of her words. He may have been unpleasant, but he wasn't foolish. He understood that his marriage was over and resisting it would only waste time and money. I stood there silently witnessing his world collapse. I had achieved more than I had intended. I had divorced Carly, and thanks to my mother's influence, I had done so with dignity. She had acknowledged her mistake, which had led to her downfall, and her apology was genuine. She had accepted her fate. We exacerbated. My mother was right. I had managed to secure $1 million from Carly's employers, and now with the help of his own wife I had turned the tables on Wiseman by betraying him. The schemer had been outsmarted. I had played a role in the demise of his marriage. Moreover, I might have fulfilled Carly's request when she said, "Don't let my foolishness ruin your life. Find the woman you deserve. Start a family, be happy together, make your parents proud, and live a wonderful life." Carly had made mistakes, but even in her despair, she had given me valuable advice.